With a name translating to old clothes, Ropa Vieja isn't doing much for itself in the marketing department. But with a little patience and a few key ingredients, you can turn old clothes into red carpet attire, or in our case, chuck roast into company-worthy dinner. Alright, we're going to start here by slicing up a couple bell peppers into nice long thin strips. We want the final texture of this dish to have that kind of old clothes or old linen kind of texture, so slicing everything into nice long thin strips is the name of the game. We'll do the same thing with one red onion, and now we'll move on to our chuck roast. We want one that's roughly 2 pounds. A little more or a little less will be just fine for this recipe. And we're going to cut it up into 2 to 3 inch chunks so that it cooks a little more quickly and shreds quite easily. I will note that the traditional cut of beef for this is a flank steak, but I think that just really dries out, and despite the fact that it does get wonderfully stringy when it's cooked, just the final texture is not worth it for me, so I go with chuck. We're going to splash in a couple tablespoons of olive oil or canola oil over high heat into a large braising dish or Dutch oven and brown that beef on all sides. Really take your time here, you want to get some nice deep color on there. Once it is nice and deeply caramelized and brown, remove it. Add in your onions and bell pepper, go ahead and season them up appropriately with salt and pepper, and toss them around in that hot skillet for 2 to 3 minutes or until they just start to soften. At that point, we're going to squeeze in a couple tablespoons of tomato paste and cook that out for 2 to 3 minutes until it is also starting to caramelize, get nice and fragrant. And now we're going to deglaze this pan with a half a cup of white wine. You could use chicken stock or water as well, and scrape up all that beautiful fond that we have developed on the bottom of our pan. Next up, we're going to add a teaspoon or so of smoked paprika, a teaspoon of ground cumin, just a pinch of allspice, maybe like 1/8 to 1/4 of a teaspoon, and a couple teaspoons of dried oregano. 4 cloves of diced garlic go in, give that a nice stir so that everything is thoroughly combined. And then we will add in our tomatoes. We're going in with 1 28-ounce can of whole tomatoes. I'm also going to add some water to that to make sure we get everything out, and add a little extra liquid, probably about 1/3 to 1/4 cup of water. Go ahead and start to break those tomatoes up just a little bit. They're going to break down during the long, slow, and low cooking process, but I like to give them a head start. Nestle your pieces of beef back into that tomato and pepper broth, along with any accumulated juices, of course. We'll season this with additional salt and pepper since we've got a lot of tomatoes and we've added the beef back in there. And finally, we'll tuck in a couple of bay leaves for added flavor. Once those are in, we're going to go ahead and lid this up, and we're going to cook it at 300 degrees Fahrenheit for about 2 hours with the lid on. This will help retain a lot of moisture and help that beef cook through and get nice and tender. After 2 hours, we're going to go ahead and remove the lid. We'll place it back in the oven after stirring everything around a little bit. You can see that beef is getting tender, but not all the way there. We'll give it 1 more hour at 300, a little more, a little less, and then she should be done. We'll go ahead and remove that beef to a plate. You can see it's gotten a nice deep brown caramelized color there on the top. We'll set that aside and shred it into nice, long, beefy strands. If you have any large pieces of fat or gristle at this point, you can certainly remove those. Most of the intermuscular fat has already broken down to create a velvety, rich sauce for us. While you are shredding your beef, you'll go ahead and return your pan over medium heat on the stove and reduce that sauce down until the consistency reaches whatever you'd like it to be. I like to get most of the extra moisture out of mine, but still have it be a nice stew-like consistency. While you're doing this, you're definitely going to want to scrape the sides and bottom of that pot or Dutch oven to get all of that wonderful flavor that we've developed in the oven incorporated into our sauce. At this point, we're pretty much ready to go here. We're going to return our shredded beef to that tomato and pepper liquid. Again, scrape everything up and thoroughly combine it together. And we're just about ready to serve. All that we need to do here is add a few final ingredients, all of which will be of the briny, salty nature. A couple tablespoons of capers go in, followed by about a 1/4 cup of green olives with pimentos I've cut in half. a couple tablespoons of red wine vinegar, you could use apple cider vinegar as well, and some cilantro leaves. This is a really rich, unctuous dish, and we really want all of those briny, tart flavors at the very end to balance all the flavors on our palate. You could serve this family style, just throw on a little extra cilantro to garnish, and I would say you could call that a day. Man, that's a really delightful looking platter. I, however, am going to go ahead and serve mine up, as is tradition, alongside some plain old black beans and white rice. Mound up that Ropa Vieja, pile on a few more olives, and a few final sprigs of cilantro. There you have it. This is really a wonderful bite of food. It is so rich. That beef is tender as can be. The tomatoes have gotten deeply caramelized. They're somewhere between sweet and savory. That vinegar cuts through everything so that it's not too rich for one bite. The rice and beans really help to balance everything out. I hope you will give this a try. Make it your own. Use flank steak. Let me know what you think. Again, I prefer chuck, but no matter what you do, I hope you have a great day. Get out of here and go make something delicious.